Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today and joining us for our alumni career webinar. What makes you unique? How to identify and leverage your standout qualities. My name is Jeff Murphy. I'm a member of the alumni career engagement team here in the BU Office of Alumni Relations. Today's event is offered to our 385,000 alumni around the globe, and of course, all of our current students. We appreciate everybody who's joined us. Some of you tuning in from some places very far away from our Boston campuses. Throughout your career, BU is committed to helping you define and achieve your professional goals, and we aim to do this by providing all of you with access to a series of valuable programs, tools, and communities. In addition to this webinar series, one of our most exciting resources is a free online community called BU Connects. If you haven't already signed up for BU Connects, I hope you'll take 5 minutes after this presentation to log in and set up your profile at buconnects.com. We now have over 25,000 BU alumni and students already on the platform. It's the very best place to build your professional network with other terriers, join regional and special interest groups, and become a mentor, find a mentor, or both. Again, check that out at buconnects.com. Before I introduce today's speaker, a couple brief housekeeping notes from me. Today's presentation is being recorded and will soon be made available for on-demand viewing on the Alumni and Friends website, which you can find at www.bu.edu/alumni. Our speaker today is very eager to answer any questions that you have. You're welcome to submit them throughout the presentation using the Q&A function on Zoom, similar to the chat. You'll just hover over Q&A, click on that, go ahead and type in your question. I will also be keeping an eye on the chat, and I think we'll probably use the chat to keep folks engaged during Kathy's talk today. Our speaker today, it's now my pleasure to introduce our speaker for the day, career and leadership coach, author, speaker, and College of Arts and Sciences alum, Kathy Caprino. Kathy is an international career and leadership coach, writer, speaker, executive trainer, helping professionals rise, thrive, and reach their highest, most rewarding potential. A former corporate VP, top media. She's also a trained therapist, seasoned executive coach, senior Forbes contributor, top media source on women's issues, and the author of 2 books, including her latest, The Most Powerful You, 7 bravery-boosting paths to career bliss. With her top-ranked Finding Brave podcast, books, assessments, coaching programs, courses, and other key resources, Kathy has been named a top career coach and leadership voice in the US and abroad. For more information about Kathy, I encourage everybody to visit her website at kathycaprino.com. That's CAPRINO, findingbrave.org. And you can also follow Kathy on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Kathy, I don't know if I refuse to call it X. I'm going to keep calling it Twitter for as long as I can. But we are thrilled to have you here today. I know you've got a slide deck ready for us. If you want to go ahead and...
I do. Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here, Jeff. All right. Everybody see that?
Looks great.
Okay, here we go. So just to make things clear, I'll be presenting for about 50 minutes, and then we'll open it up for questions. I can't wait to take them, as you said. Thanks again. All right. What makes you unique? How to identify and leverage your standout qualities. So just a little look at where this information is coming from and what we're going to be talking about. First, I want you to know that I struggled with everything we're talking about here. There weren't a lot of career coaches back when I was, had my corporate career. And also, I want to tell you this, just as a little context. This is coming from not only my experience, but writing 2 books and hundreds of coaching and training sessions and expert interviews. I have a Forbes blog. I think Jeff mentioned that in my podcast. I'm bringing everything I got to help you with this, but also it comes from my perspective of having an 18-year corporate career, successful on the outside, not successful on the inside, not understanding why my career was so bumpy and fraught with a lot of challenges. Sexual harassment, gender discrimination, toxic colleagues, narcissistic bosses, zero work-life balance, a lot of things that were very difficult that I didn't understand. But I did figure it out, and after a layoff after 9/11, became a therapist and now have been doing this for 16 years. My sweet spot is helping mid to high-level professional women, but I work with a lot of amazing men as well. And we will be talking about first what holds us back from seeing and talking about how we're unique. Also, how to recognize what my research has shown are the 7 most damaging power and confidence gaps that keep millions of people, millions of professionals from reaching their highest and happiest potential, how to identify and fully leverage what makes you unique and how you stand apart. And overall, why are we talking about this? So you can build a better and more rewarding career. That's the goal here. Again, a little more context, and I hope it's helpful for you. About 5-6 years ago, I started to look at what is going on here, that no matter where my clients are calling from, no matter what country, no matter how much money they have, no matter the field, the industry, the level of education, they're bringing the same challenges over and over and over. And generally, this is what's going on. They feel unable to work or lead or communicate or grow in the way they want to. They don't feel recognized or valued. They feel they're meant for something much bigger and better. They aren't advancing or receiving the compensation they feel they deserve. Or they're not doing work that feels right or good or meaningful and purposeful. Or there's just too much struggle and conflict where they are. And finally, in the end, they just want something more different and better in their lives. They don't feel able to reach their goals. Why I have this slide here is that if you don't understand how you're unique, how you're special, and yes, I'm going to say special because every human being is like a fingerprint. You are unlike anyone else on this planet. And I mean that with all my heart. If you don't know how you're unique, you're going to have more of these problems. So, what I asked, two questions I said I need to answer. What is missing most in the lives and careers of the people coming to me for help? And what are they getting from my brand of career coaching, but coaching in general, that creates breakthrough? And the answer was this: they are missing the bravery to recognize and face head on what is not working and take accountability to change it. But that's not enough. Bravery is not enough. We also need power. And I have a special definition of what I mean by power: to act with influence and impact on your own behalf, and also to advocate for others, and to become the true author of your life and the leader of your life. And the truth is, power requires confidence, and knowing how you're unique and how what you have to offer is valuable helps you get that confidence and power. So again, I am talking here about not the power over people, but the power to do, the power to accomplish and create and manifest and be a strength and force for good. And also, it's the influence to make an impact and difference. If you don't have confidence and you don't have power, it's very hard to make a difference. Authority to lead and work as you wish and not stay stuck in situations that are demeaning or devaluing or where you're being mistreated. And it's also self-trust to share your ideas and know they're valuable, and share your visions as well. So again, power, I need everyone to understand, does not have to be harsh, abusive, angry, critical, hurtful. It's a force for good. All right. So what does it feel like to know what your uniqueness is, to talk about it and not be afraid that you're going to sound like a braggart? What does it feel like to be a brave and powerful professional? First, you're going to leverage and lead with your natural talents. You're not going to build a career over the skills that you have that you hate using, which frankly, I spent a lot of time doing. That makes it a very bumpy road. You're going to engage in more meaningful work. You're going to earn the respect and recognition, and yes, the money that you deserve. You're going to build more heart-connected relationships because you're actually coming from a sense of knowing who you really are rather than trying to hide it. You're going to lose those imposter feelings. Unbelievably, I interviewed a senior individual in my Forbes blog who they had done a research study that showed that 75% of executive women face imposter syndrome. And they defined that as believing that you didn't get where you are, senior levels, because of your talents and abilities. You got there because of luck and being at the right place at the right time. That is a very damaging feeling, that you don't recognize that you made it happen, with the help of others, of course. But It's a difficult situation. And finally, you're able to uplift others as you rise. And most wonderful, inspiring professionals, and I'm trusting that everybody on this call wants to help others as well as themselves. So again, I'm going to get to exactly the steps you can take to understand and leverage your unique, oh, I can't say it, uniqueness. But I want you to understand what prevents us from recognizing that we're unique. If we don't get to the root of that, we're going to struggle over and over. So I want to talk about the 7 damaging power and confidence gaps that keep both men and women from thriving. Now, women have these in a deeper way, and they internalize these in a deeper way based on the hundreds of surveys I've done and the results of a quantitative survey that showed that 98% of the women surveyed, and 98% of women and 90% of men are experiencing at least one of these gaps, and 75% have 3 or more of these gaps. On my LinkedIn poll, I have a big community on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my happy place. We're going to hear about that and what you can do on LinkedIn in a minute. But I do a lot of polls there, and 56% of the people polled say, I wish I had more confidence, more than half the population. So let's talk about these quickly. The whole point is for you to begin to gain awareness. Where do I not have power? Where do I not have confidence? And then we're going to help you understand your uniqueness so that you can close these gaps. But here are the gaps. Excuse me. And the numbers you're seeing here, T equals of the survey I did of 1,400 people, T equals the total respondents. Y equals, when you look at young adults, 18 to 24, they have some of these gaps in a higher. Jeff, you're nodding your head because you work with a lot of these people. There's a higher prevalence of these gaps. And when you look at these gaps, you can see why. Number one, power gap is not recognizing your special talents, abilities, and achievements. That's what we're talking about today. The total, 63% said they have the gap. But in the youth group, the younger group, 83%. Number two, communicating from fear, not strength, 70%. Now, these numbers reflect the women's responses, but men, again, have these gaps as well, 70%. Number three, reluctance to ask for what you deserve, 77%. That means we're leaving so much money on the table, so much advancement, so much potential for doing what you want for leadership. Number four is isolating from influential support. So the research shows that women have 3 times as many mentors as men, but men have twice as many sponsors. Sponsors are high-level mentors, people who can open doors for you that you can't open on your own. And we need that influential support. Power gap number 5 is acquiescing instead of saying stop to mistreatment. 48% say they have it. It's more than that. I think people don't want to admit it, that they're not doing anything about it. Number 6 is losing sight of your thrilling dream for your life. I don't know if you all feel like it, but in the chat as I'm speaking, if something really resonates with you, you can just put a thumbs up so we can just see, is this speaking to you? That would be helpful. And number 7 is allowing the past and past trauma and pain. And I'm a former therapist, so I use the word trauma more easily than most, but you can have trauma if your boss calls you stupid, if you're humiliated in a meeting, if one of your colleagues backstabs you. That can be traumatic. So the gap is allowing the past to continue to shape and define you, 62%. So right now, I ask you to look at this slide and write down the number pertaining to the gap or gaps that you think you have. And, of course, I have a book that's all about these gaps and walks you through specific strategies and solutions to close those gaps. But I will say, if 2 or 3 or more of these resonate with you, there's work to be done so that you can thrive. Okay, so I do want to say before we get into the uniqueness piece, so many people say to me, why am I so stuck? I've come to 100 of these webinars. I've read 50,000 books, it seems. Why am I stuck? And here's what I have seen. We stay stuck because it's action that changes our lives, not thought, not insight. Now, don't get me wrong. I've had insights that have been transformative, but it's when you take brave and empowered action, unlike anything you've taken before, that's what changes your life. So if you're here because you're stuck, I'm so stuck not knowing how I'm unique. The exercises are going to help, but I want to make sure you're taking action, and we're going to talk about that. So there are, in my view, 7 brave pathways to career bliss, and I call that the framework for growth. And we are going to focus on number 1, brave sight, because that's where that uniqueness piece comes. But if you're interested in what the 7 are, they're brave sight. That means you see yourself bravely and you're not afraid to share that with the world. Brave speak, you're communicating from strength, not fear. Brave ask, you're making the case for what you want and deserve, and you're not shying away from that. Brave connection, you're building an amazing support network of influential people who can help. Brave challenge, you're saying no to what is no longer working. Brave service, you're finally addressing that feeling, I've lost it. I'm not doing what I dreamed to do when I was in college at BU. And finally, brave healing. You are finally addressing messages that hurt you from the past. Okay, so let's do it. What makes you unique? This falls under brave sight. So I'm going to ask you this question. Do you recognize how truly talented, gifted, and valuable you are? So I coach a lot of women, and I believe that everything I say will pertain to every man on the call as well. Here's what they say. I don't think I'm special. I don't think I have any special talents. And I sure don't want to talk about them because I am afraid I'm going to sound like a braggart. And so here it is. I've worked with over 20,000 women across 6 continents. I will work with someone and it'll be session 3, and they'll say something like, well, I did help transform the airline industry. I'm like, what? What? Say that again. And I say, you mean we've spoken for 3.5 hours and over 3 weeks, and I'm only learning this now? And why isn't it on LinkedIn? Well, I'm afraid people will say I didn't do it. So let's talk about this. Let's break it down. I want you to think about, and ideally, what day is it today? Friday. Ideally, this weekend or as soon as possible, you can go sit by yourself, all distractions off, devices off, pad and pencil, or your phone with notes that you want to write. And I want you to really think about these exercises and do them and write down the answers to these questions. But what are your natural capabilities and strengths? The powerful skills and talents that came easily to you from the beginning of time. So let's break this down. Before we do it, though, I want you to know that there is a reason people are afraid to recognize and talk about their uniqueness. Number 1, we have cultural and societal training. And this is particularly true in patriarchal systems, and it's true for women where they're actually trained. We're trained. We live in a patriarchal society. This is not to bash men, but if you look at Fortune 500 companies, only 8 to 10% are run by women. It's still, men are still in the dominant culture. So if the men listening are coaches, I connected with a wonderful coach who's a guy on LinkedIn today who's here. But if you lead women, manage women, collaborate with women, this is important for you to know as well. There is true cultural and societal training that we do not talk about how we're great because, or, the skills that we have that we think are important to contribute. So I want you to take some time to think about why it's hard for you to do this. Why you all came here. So I'm guessing you might struggle with, do I even think I'm unique? So why is it hard for you to recognize those talents and 2, to talk about them? So ask yourself this: do I feel ready now to do the internal and external work to move beyond the fear of viewing myself as someone who has talents? think about that and put something in the chat if you'd like to. The second reason we don't recognize or talk about our uniqueness is many of us have been penalized. We've received pushback when we've spoken confidently. So if I do want to say this, if you are chronically negatively reacted to, you're receiving negative reaction when you do speak about what you have done or what you're thrilled to contribute, your unique abilities. If you get pushback, most likely there's problems in your workplace, in your ecosystem that contribute to a lack of valuing employees and a lack of encouraging them to see that they're truly unique. I mean, I just talked to one senior group where, how would I put it? The leaders are saying that some of the mid to high level professional women don't have the talents to rise to the highest level, where I don't think that's the problem at all. I think there's another problem. So I want you to think about, don't just catch every ball that's thrown to you. If someone is pushing back when you're speaking about yourself in a positive way, you need to look at the ecosystem. Okay? Now, how do you figure out how you're unique? In my TEDx Talk Time to Brave Up, I talk about this exercise. I want you to think about what I call the 20 facts of you, and here it is. I'd love you to brainstorm, and if you have more than 20, awesome. But what are the 20 most powerful and important accomplishments or outcomes you've achieved that make you most proud and excited? And I got to stop there. I want you to do that in your personal life. So that can go back to when you were 8 and you were the first person who had a lemonade stand and it made $100. I don't care what the outcome is. It's what made you the most excited, what made you the most proud. So you can do that in your personal life, but then think about your professional life. And it doesn't have to be something that someone else is going to say, wow, she won a Pulitzer Prize. I'm talking about what you're proud of, what you're excited about. Then I want you to tease out the skills that you have and the perspective and the lens that allowed you to make that happen. So I'm going to give you a brief example. I was laid off from my vice president job in a way that really hurt my ego. And I really thought, oh, I'm a loser. I felt like I was kicked to the curb. And it took me years. I didn't know this stuff back then. It was right after 9/11. It took me years to say, now, wait a minute. 100 people were laid off at that time. It was a challenge in our business because we had a travel sector that took a terrible hit. Was it me that was the loser? Well, there were 100 other great people that were laid off. Secondly, what did I do in that job that I'm proud of, even though it was incredibly difficult? And I won't go into too much detail, but I'm giving you this, so I'm dimensionalizing it so you can do it for yourself. I revitalized 2 fading businesses. I helped generate clients, bank clients that helped us market our programs to their constituents. I helped bring them back into the fold, and it was worth millions of dollars. Did I do it alone? No, not at all. We had a sales team, we had a great marketing team, but what I did do is had a kind of a mediation mindset. Here comes the bank client. Here comes our marketing team. They were very far apart about what they wanted to do. What I could do is listen in a deep way. Okay, this is where we're not meeting your needs. So marketing team, what can we do to bridge that gap? I always had a therapeutic kind of mediation type of mindset. So I want you to tease out the skills that you have that allow you to do these things that maybe other people couldn't do. I hope that makes sense. Please do put a question in the Q&A. Now, speaking of facts here, how can you speak about these accomplishments as fact, not subjective, I think I did this, but something that can't be refuted? So if I say I revitalized a fading business, I mean, this is what my boss said to me. This is why I got a promotion to another level. It can't be refuted. I did that. Or you can think about, let's say, you have your own business, you're an entrepreneur, and you're trying to stand apart. If I think about, for instance, facts of why someone should hire me versus someone else, and this is not bragging, this is to tell you how I do it. I say, number one, I had an 18-year corporate career, high level. I lived the experience of being a vice president. Number two, I'm a trained therapist. I go deeper than most coaches. Number three, I've spent 16 years focused on professional women's challenges and wrote 2 books about it. Number four, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm in the arena doing the hard things I'm teaching you. So when you can speak about it as fact, these are facts, you're not going to feel like you're a bragger. You're going to feel like you're sharing what makes you stand out and why you love the work that you do. And maybe you don't love your work, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But it's just going to roll off your tongue, and you're going to be able to put that on LinkedIn and talk about it with other people who might want to hire you. They're facts. And so I want you to get over the fear that if I put that on LinkedIn or say that, it's going to be refuted. Now, I do need to say, you're not going to say you did something when your entire team did it. No, you're not taking credit where it's not due, but what did you provide as the strategic leader of the team? Oh, my team was amazing in developing innovative new products. Where I contributed was strategic vision to prioritize those products, to get the resources we need. I want you to start thinking about what you did that others didn't do, okay? The second way to think about how am I unique is look at all the recurring themes, connect all the dots from when you were young onward. What have you loved doing or hated doing all your life? What are your passions? So, for me, I was always therapeutic. I was a writer. I studied English at BU. I used to love to get to the bottom of why do people do what they do. My dad, who was a brilliant chemist, said, "Oh, good grief, Kathy, you're always trying to figure out why people are doing what they're doing." Yes, that was always me. Well, obviously, this is the right career for me because I help people figure out what they're doing. Think about who you always were that went underground, and think about the top lessons you've learned in life. Think about what you care about, what you value, what agitates you, what you can't not talk about, right? Think about who you are at your core. Also, a lot of people that I meet with and interview have done something called and I didn't coin this term. I wish I did. They've turned their mess into a message. So that's certainly something I've done. I didn't know any of this, and I struggled not knowing this for years. And I'm trying to turn that into a message. What about you? Where can you turn your mess into a message? Meaning the stuff that you've struggled with, that you've overcome. How can you turn that into a message? So it's time to build a more powerful narrative of everything you've ever been and what you're capable of. And, I do have a free document, my free career path assessment, and you're going to get a link to these slides. You can click on these links that are embedded here, and you can take that. The idea is that you are going to learn. It asks you, for instance, to look at every job you've ever had, what you loved, what you hated, what you never want to do again, and what you want to bring forward. And I promise you, if you spend time answering these questions, you're going to see things you didn't see before. Like you might be 10 jobs into your career, and I ask in the assessment to rank it 1 to 10 in terms of how much you enjoyed it. Maybe in the beginning you gave it a 9 and a 10, but now it's a 1. Some people forget that they loved the job 10 times ago. Well, let's look back at what you loved and let's bring that forward for you. Okay? I also want you to think about, because this makes you unbelievably unique, your personal history, your upbringing, your family life, your culture, the languages you speak, where you've lived, what you've been through in high school, all of it that's given you a unique perspective, a unique lens. So let's say you were part of a military family and you moved 7 times in your childhood. that has given you an amazingly unique perspective. And there's so much resilience that shows, and your ability to suss out environments and perhaps fit in and learn how to bond. I mean, it goes on and on. Let's say you speak 4 languages. I know I speak English well and a little bit of Italian, a little bit of French. Just learning languages can shift your entire perspective. Or let's say you're passionate about AI. That's something you need to talk about. It's all the rage today. So we don't just have to look at what we've done in the past 3 years. It's everything you've ever been that makes you stand out from other people. And also the way you've dealt with challenges that other people might not have experienced. All of this makes you unique. So the first step is to recognize it. How am I unique? And there should be a number of ways, not just one way. And then we need to leverage it. So here's some ways to do it. Again, tease out all the talents and skills. And I ask you to think about, when I say talents, do you cringe? Do you think, like, I had an anesthesiologist, a top anesthesiologist in a hospital in Sweden as a client. And she said to me, "I don't have any talents." And I said, "I don't understand how you can say that." She goes, I don't think I do. And I said, "Can I do your job? Can I walk in and do your job?" And she said, "Oh, probably not." And I said, "Could I actually kill someone in the first week of doing your job?" And she said, "Yes." I said, "You have some talents here." And she said, "Well, I see those as skills. I want you to understand that, yes, there are other anesthesiologists, but are they doing it the way you're doing it? Are they actually executing it the way you're doing it?" And I think the answer is no. That's why the talents and the skills come together. So take some time and do a full inventory of your career trajectory, how you did what you did, and how that makes you unique. Now, some people simply can't answer these questions. "I don't know. I don't think I'm special." Okay, that means you're a little blocked. And what I want you to do is ask 10 people this week, colleagues, friends, people in your life who respect and admire you and who you admire and respect. Don't ask people you don't like, what they see in you that they would say is unique or different, or what they think your talents are. Or, this friend has been a friend for 20 years. What do they see in you that they want to sustain and cultivate a friendship for 20 years? Or your old boss who loved you and she or he loved you. Ask them, say, "I took a webinar, a BU Connect webinar. I'm a little confused. I really don't see myself as talented or skilled or unique. Can you help?" I guarantee you that what they say back is going to blow your mind. And next step is start to work it. So, I'm on LinkedIn all the time, and I really look at a lot of people who reach out to me. I'm looking at my clients' LinkedIn profiles. I will tell you that so many people are hiding. They don't have an image. They don't, a headshot. Their headline is their job title. No, never. You are more than your job. You need to I'm going to talk about LinkedIn because I think this is the first place to start in terms of sharing your uniqueness. But what I want to say before I get going on that is, how you do LinkedIn is how you do your career pretty much. So if you're hiding there, it's a sign that you're not engaged, or maybe you don't love it or feel you don't belong. So I want you to complete your LinkedIn profile, every single section of it, every single section. So why I bring that up here is they allow you to list 50 skills. I want you to list 50 skills. Now, never lie, never embellish, never exaggerate, because that makes you weak. Because what that really is saying is, I don't believe in myself enough to tell the truth. You have 50 skills. They give a list of thousands. Put them there so people can endorse you for those skills. And complete every section, which includes giving recommendations and asking for recommendations. I want to tell you, when I was in my most heartbroken phase, getting over the layoff of my corporate career and changing away from corporate life, someone gave me my very first LinkedIn recommendation. And she wasn't in my unit, my division, but she said the most beautiful thing. I literally cried. And that recommendation healed years of pain about maybe I'm not a good manager, maybe I'm not a good leader. It can really change how you think about yourself to ask for recommendations, but also give them. And then what I want you to do, even if you love your job, write an ideal job description as if you saw it on LinkedIn. Write the ideal job that you would be overjoyed to take, accept, and contribute to. And write it as if you saw that job description on LinkedIn or on Indeed or wherever you're looking for applying for jobs. And write it at the highest level where you think you could be a great fit for it. Okay. And then you're going to share that if you are looking to better your job or career. So here's LinkedIn. All right. I do see these as inextricably linked. Once you start figuring out how you're unique and you start posting and sharing and using LinkedIn. Now, not every person here might feel that LinkedIn is the best social networking platform. I think for most professionals it is, but it could be Instagram, it could be TikTok for you, but I think this will still apply for your social media activity if you're on it. So the first thing I want to share is I really think that LinkedIn, I call it the great cocktail party in the sky. I mean that with all my heart. Now, I'm an extrovert. Some introverts might say, who wants that? But at least you're not doing it in person, in the beginning when you're connecting with people on LinkedIn. But why do I call it that? Because imagine an opportunity where you can be in the room with, I'm going to say 1,000 people because I like crowds, but you might say 50 people who are the most inspiring people in the world to you. And you can be in community with them and you can ask them a question. Now, maybe they're so illustrious they won't answer. Who knows? But you can be literally in the room with them. Why wouldn't you? I did a talk recently and a very senior woman said, no, I hate it. I'm not on it. And I said, why? I think you're missing out. She goes, I don't want to be approached by people I don't know. Okay. Well, then people do say, should I only connect with people on LinkedIn who I know? No, that's not the point. The point is that you are expanding your amazing network. I'm sure you're going to have questions about this, but start today on LinkedIn. So reach out to people who are 10 steps ahead of you, doing what you want, inspiring you. They've written a book that you love. They did a webinar you love. You read a post of theirs that you loved, and be of service to them. Repost it, tag them, but always share your own thought leadership. I loved this because, or wow, this spoke to me because, and tag the person. So one thing I'm trying to share here is we don't want to reach out to people with our hands out. Me. You have a lot to give people. Just doing that one thing or liking a post that meant a lot to them and adding a comment or liking an initiative of theirs that they're sharing. You can't imagine, if I do that sometimes, I can't believe some of the people who, very illustrious people with millions of followers, write back, thank you, Kathy, appreciate that. Not that it's all about vanity metrics, but you'll be amazed who you get on the radar of when you share yourself. And as I said, ask for and give recommendations. So why do we give recommendations? Sure, you might get one from that wonderful person in return. But when I'm looking at people on LinkedIn, I am looking, did they receive and did they give? Because it shares a lot about who you are. And I bet you know someone who you love. Like there's a former president of a book club company I worked with for 11 years. He was my sponsor before I even knew what that word meant, and he's no longer alive. And I didn't get the chance to thank him properly after I, left corporate life, and that hurts me. Give a recommendation. Oh, post other people's contributions and share your thought leadership. And again, complete every single section on LinkedIn. where you went to school, what your certifications are, right? Every single one. Follow groups that matter to you and be a part of them. Follow people, voices, companies. So what I love to say is get in the right room, network up and build your support community. And as you do this, you are going to understand how you're unique more than you do today. I do want to share that managing our thoughts and our fears is critical in all this. Fear is what stops millions of us from doing what I'm talking about, but in the bigger picture, from a happier life and career. They're afraid. I know that because so was I. I didn't leave my unhappy corporate life, and my last 2 years were really unhappy. Mistreatment. I didn't leave because of fear. So when you hear this stuff I'm telling you, I'm guessing, you let me know, put a thumbs up. Does it make you a little nervous? It should. And it should, because you're stretching beyond who you are today. And that is the hope. The hope is that the belief here is, if you want something better, something more suited to you, something you're more passionate about, you're going to have to build stronger boundaries. You're going to have to stretch. You're going to have to find brave. And you're also going to have to say no to things, jobs that you don't like, mistreatment, staying stuck. You have to say no to it to move forward to yes. So if this brings up a little fear, I'm going to say, I know. That doesn't mean it's wrong. It means you're stretching. So overall, what you want to do, if you really want a different situation, or you really want to leverage your uniqueness in ways you are not, and that can also be what you're doing on the side. I am a tennis player. I am a singer. I love these two things on the side. And I'm on the board of the singing group. You can contribute in amazing ways that enliven you and make you feel so contributive and alive. And it doesn't have to be your career, right? So think about what you really want and how you can leverage who you really are, but build those mentorship and sponsor relationships, because we can't do anything of significance without people in our lives. We truly can't. It's other people that help us grow. I wouldn't be on this call with you without Jeff, without him being a wonderful colleague and connection. Strengthen your personal brand. All of this work helps you know, this is how I stand out. This is how I'm different. Am I better than someone else? No, you're different. Do I have the best talents in the world? Maybe not, but they're special, because again, it's a thumbprint. It's unlike, the amalgam of what you have is unlike anyone else's. But it also takes taking small, continuous steps. Getting to a new place doesn't just happen overnight. And it's not just one phone call or one LinkedIn post. You've got to be brave, and you've got to do it continuously and not give up. And definitely engage more fully on LinkedIn. I sound like I'm a LinkedIn, too bad I'm not an affiliate, but I'm not. I am an ambassador for them, just because I love it. And it has been so life-changing for me. An ambassador meaning I love to talk about it. And I will say, sometimes we can't do this all by ourselves. So find an accountability partner, your mentor, your cousin, who also needs to do these things. Find someone who you are saying with them, okay, I'm going to do this within a week, and have them, when you're going to show up and talk to Sally in a week, it makes you do the thing. We all know that. That's why many of us don't do stuff without some sort of an accountability structure. So I want to leave you with a few thoughts. I really can say this with all honesty. A great majority of professionals I spoke to cannot articulate their biggest career dreams, and they don't see their own worth and value. And if you don't, you're not going to build the rewarding career and the rewarding life and the exciting life, passion-filled life that I think so many of you want. It's time to get clear, right? The other thing I want to talk to you about is, there's you now, but there's also the future you, right? And I always say, do what you must to stay afloat, but always plant the seeds for your future self, because your future self is going to arrive. And I didn't do that. I didn't know how I was talented. I didn't know what I really wanted to do. I knew what I had was not right, but I didn't plant seeds for my future self. So if you're in a situation or a job or a career where you think, I don't know about this, not another 20 years, not another 10 years, then I want you to think about what skills and talents would be thrilling to develop. You don't have to risk anything. What outcomes would you be excited to achieve if you could leverage your talents and skills differently? What direction do you secretly fantasize about being involved in? Like, I remember, I think I went to a psychic when I was young, and she said, "You're going to write at least one book." And I looked over my shoulder like, is she talking to me? That's ridiculous. Well, 2 books and maybe a third. Wow. Believe in it. What do you secretly fantasize about being involved in? And then the point is, if you knew you couldn't fail and it would all work out beautifully, I believe this is a Tony Robbins quote, what would you explore and pursue? And I want to say this, you don't have to risk anything. You just start talking about it. And there you start networking. That's why LinkedIn is great. And you talk about how you think you're unique and the talent you want to bring forward. And there's 2 questions you ask when so you'll reach out to someone who's 100 steps ahead of you. Let's say they've written a book and you want to write a book. You ask them, now, if they're incredibly illustrious, Brene Brown, she's not going to respond on LinkedIn, right? I mean, we have to manage our expectations. But there are so many people that would love to help you. And once you have a conversation with them, what you want to ask is, do you have any ideas for me after they tell you about their trajectory? Here's how I did it. Here's what's important to know. Do you have any ideas for me? And the second question is, do you know anyone who would be helpful to speak with? That in and of itself gives you another 10 people to talk to. I have been doing this. I did it with Jeff, actually. I would love my book to perhaps be turned into a college course. Jeff was one of the first people I reached out to. Do you know anyone? Well, he was so kind and gave me 4 or 5 names immediately. Well, you know that one step is going to generate so much traction for you. So it's great to understand what your talents are, but now you want to talk about, what do I want to do with them? What is the next step for me? So, I want you to think about, how can you start being the person you believe you want to be? So I love to say this, writers write, teachers teach. People say to me, I'd love to write that book, but I can't quit my corporate job. Who's asking you to? Most writers I know, nonfiction writers, have 5 different jobs. They're a consultant for Google, they're a writer, they speak, teachers teach. If you have something to teach, write the syllabus, write the curriculum, and give it at a community college, right? Start now. You don't have to chuck what you have. You don't have to lose everything. You don't have to risk your corporate salary. Just start doing it. Start being that person. Because once you do, that makes you so much more brave and so much more confident. And it also gives you so much more to talk about and leverage. So pursue that in doable, risk-free ways where you don't feel like you have to chuck your entire career to do these things. And then start telling everyone you know. I've done these things, and you can't imagine how generative it is. And if you really are interested in another career path, there's lots of ways to vet it, to try it on physically, behaviorally, emotionally, financially. Shadow someone, interview 10 people doing it, volunteer. My goodness, that shows you what it really is. Or intern. I know many of you can't do that. You have a full-time job. Take a class, attend a conference, start a new project at your job. Hey, I'd love to oversee this charitable division that we're starting. Can I be involved in some way? And speak to people doing it and tell them about your talents and your skills that you'd love to leverage. So why am I asking you to do all this? Because it changes your life, really. It helps you create a life of greater possibilities, and it helps you be of service in more meaningful ways. And it helps you access not just career wonderfulness, but balance, joy, health, and more prosperity, for sure. It helps you be part of something bigger. because you are using your talents in service of the world and in service of others. And my goodness, does the world need your talents? And it helps you make the impact that you're dreaming to make. So there we go. Are you ready? Ready for a thrilling work, life, and career of significance and impact that you love and are proud of? And that you can say, I've created this and I am using my talents for good in the world. And I have to say, if not now, when? Look at what we've been through and look at what we're going through in the world. There's really no better time to do this. I mean, I wouldn't wait. I would get moving. The world needs you. I mean that. And if not you, who? My goodness, all of you went to BU or are affiliated with with BU. All of you have a computer. All of you have Zoom. All of you have education. We are advantaged, right? These are enormous privileges and advantages. So if we're not doing these things, building lives and careers of meaning, who is? Who can? I love this picture. Look how happy. It's your time to shine and rise. And this is what I say at the end here. Become the most powerful version of you and then illuminate the world with it, because that's what your talents and skills truly do. I hope that's helpful. Oh, I did want to share with you, for all BU alumni, you are free to take 20% off my career and leadership breakthrough coaching programs. There's the code, and you're going to get this in an email. There's a link to my private coaching programs, and I do have a video training, 8-module video training program, The Most Powerful You, that walks you through the 7 most damaging power gaps and gives really powerful information about how to close them, strategy, solution tips. And they're not just from me. I interviewed I think it's over 35 people for the book, and their amazing tips and solutions are in that training and in the book too. So there you go. All right. Ready for questions? Shall I stop sharing, Jeff?
You can leave that up, particularly,
Okay.
Kathy. Do you have a slide here at the end that might have, I know if people want to follow up with you, LinkedIn is a great place to do that. Oh, perfect. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, let's leave that up, or your Kathy Caprino website. I do want to remind folks, please take advantage of the remaining minutes we have and let Kathy know what questions you got. I see some folks just chiming in. Excellent program, Kathy. One question I wanted to start us off with, I was thinking back to something that you had talked about earlier in your presentation, Kathy, about cultural training. And it's got me thinking about how as BU has become this incredibly globally diverse place, one of the things I hear so much about from folks when they need to talk about their own accomplishments, particularly alumni and students from our Asian countries, and I know we have quite a few students joining us today, that it's just not something that's done. So, you've had these coaching clients, I think you said on 6 continents around the world. When you've got somebody who's really running into that sort of those cultural differences of networking and talking about their skills and accomplishments, how do you get people to start sort of overcoming that?
What a great question. So glad you asked. So I will say to you, in working with thousands of, women in particular, there are certain cultures that struggle with this more. Asian cultures, Indian cultures. There's some Jewish women I've had that are taught not to be braggarts. And I mean that with quotes. And I want to tell you, I was raised by a Greek mom and Italian dad, and they're in heaven now, and they were incredible supporters. But I want to tell you, the reason I wrote this book is that I grew up not being able to challenge my mother. And, I love you, Mom. And when I decided to write about this, I called her up and said, Mom, I have to share. I have to say that I didn't learn how to speak up for myself and challenge. And that came from childhood. Are you okay with me saying that? And there was dead silence. And then she said, yeah, I can understand. She said, I was raised that you do not challenge your authority figures. You never challenge your parents. It's disrespectful. She said, I can understand that you would feel that. So here's my view of it. In working with people, my goal isn't for them to become more like Blip or more like men or more like American women. My goal is to help you ask yourself, did the messages that I got growing up, are they helping me now or are they hurting me? Now, I need to say this. We are not here to blame our parents. And I'm certainly not here to say one culture is better than another. I am here to say, if you can't speak confidently about yourself, it will hurt you in your career. Now, when a client tells me, and I just gave a big talk to a finance organization, and many of the women were Asian, and I've heard from many of them saying, I was taught not to do this. So my question is, again, we are not blaming, we are not making anyone wrong, but is what you learned in childhood supporting you to do what you want in your life, or is it creating struggles? If the answer is, I want to be a senior leader in my finance organization, but I will never be if I don't know how to speak up in a meeting, if I don't know how to talk about what I've done. So then we'll say, how can we work on this in a way that doesn't feel terribly uncomfortable? It's going to feel uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable for me. And I grew up, with a Greek mom, an Italian dad. I ask you to think about, is it holding me back? And if it's holding you back, there are small steps you can start to take. You can start on LinkedIn. You can start fleshing, for instance, get rid of your job title as your headline and come up with a formula that I use. You do this today. It's not your job title, unless your company insists on something which is not copacetic. It's the formula of, what do you functionally do, for whom, and for what outcomes. So if you look at mine, it's career coach, speaker, trainer, podcast host, senior Forbes contributor, dedicated to helping professional women rise and thrive and build their best careers. So you know how I do it, who I do it for, and for what outcomes. Everybody today should change. It's not easy, I know. Sometimes you need copywriting help. You can ask a friend who's a great writer, but just start in the small steps that don't make you too afraid. But I ask you, is it time to make a shift beyond, I need to hide who I really am?
Kathy, we unfortunately are running up against the hour that we've asked people to carve out for this, but can you go over for a few more minutes? We
I
do
would
have some
love
great
to.
questions. Okay,
I would love it.
awesome. Maybe we'll try to
Thank
do
you
like
for
a speed
asking.
round here for a few more. But Monesh asked a really interesting question in the chat. How personal should you get on LinkedIn? For example, this person was going to write up about their recent trip to the dentist with a message alongside of it. How do you balance that of oversharing but still be your authentic self in a professional place like LinkedIn?
What a fantastic question. I think that it's okay in certain circumstances to post about a about a personal situation. But I think it's best, as you're saying, to tie it into um, what you learned professionally, or a message that's helpful professionally. Now, some people don't do that. They show pictures of their wedding anniversary. I'm not a fan of that. I think that's more for Facebook or Instagram. So if it truly has been something inspiring or something eye-opening, or how you were treated in the dentist's office that made you realize that how we treat our clients and customers needs to, I think it's great if you tie it in to a professional message. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And this is another question that came in that I think is kind of related, but this person asks a really thoughtful question about how do you sort of, particularly online, in person, how do you, what are the dangers of being that true self advocate for yourself in this cancel culture that we find ourselves in? And how do you also sort of navigate balancing that?
These are fantastic questions. And I'm trying to do them rapid fire, but they're deep. So bear with me. I have had to think about this. I have had to say, should I come out and say I was sexually harassed? Should I come out and say there was gender bias? Um, I would give this advice. If what you want to share is truly who you are, and you don't want to hide it, that hiding it is not living your full life, I would suggest that you find a way to incorporate that message, but often negates the very first thing I just said. So let's say, and we do have to be careful in that people can be vindictive, people can be cruel, we're in an environment right now in the world where there's a lot of hate. So I will give you a benchmark for me. I write on Forbes. There's Forbes.com. There are certain things I'm encouraged to cover because I'm in the leadership channel. There's other things I'm not. For instance, let me give you this example. I saw the Barbie movie. It let me down. I was disappointed. That is a very unpopular opinion. And I can't write on that on Forbes because I'm not in the entertainment channel. I wrote about it in my blog, my personal blog. I got a lot of comments, but did I want to come out and say what I really wanted? I felt that that was incredibly important to do because not a lot of people were sharing that view. So think about doing it. Think about if sharing that is something that is going to make you feel like you're being more authentic and it's really who you are, and hiding it is no longer sustainable for you. But I would do it in a way that you're protecting yourself. Does that answer it?
I think it absolutely does. Thank you for that, Kathy. And I'm sorry we've run over time here. We do have some other great questions, but honestly, I think they could be 1 hour webinars on their own. So for folks that asked good questions, but we didn't have time to answer, is them connecting with you on LinkedIn a
I
great way?
love it. I'd love you to, send me a connection request and add a note. By the way, whenever you connect with someone, always, always, always add a note why you want to, and say, I liked your webinar. Can I please ask a question? And I promise you, I will answer as soon as I can in the next few days.
Kathy, this was amazing. I'm so thankful that you were willing to do another webinar for us. I'm going to make sure that everybody sees the recording of the last one you did for us and in a follow-up email. I want to thank everybody for coming today, particularly those of you who have donated to the university in the past to support our students and our work. I ask that you all keep an eye on the alumni events calendar on our website for our upcoming webinars. We've got a great one coming up in November. Awkward to Awesome, Boost Productivity, Diversity, and Innovation with Cultural Intelligence. Cultural intelligence, so important in today's modern work world. But in December, we're actually going to have a wonderful BU alum that has worked with us before, Angela Pitter, who's going to be doing a session entirely about LinkedIn. So taking all of these things that Kathy talked about today, about the importance of LinkedIn, diving a little bit deeper, using LinkedIn in combination with BU Connects is a great way to find mentors and people that were willing to do job shadowing, etc. So the LinkedIn webinar is going to be December 5th. You can sign up for all of our webinars now on our website, and I hope to see you at some of our future events. And Kathy, thank you again for this and for all that you've done to support me and Boston University. Really appreciate it.
It's so my pleasure and honor, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you, everybody. So appreciate it.
And I hope everybody has a great day or great evening wherever in the world you might be living. Thanks so much.
Bye.